Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at Isophyne. Obviously this is still very early on in the champion's lifespan, and by no means draw any final conclusions, but I will let you guys know exactly what I think of the champion so far. We're going to compare her damage output and playability in different scenarios against some other Mystic champions that I happen to have at rank 1, so it would be fair, and then go over some of her matchups. Ultimately, for those of you who are the most eager, Isophyne is exactly what she is. She's a Serpent counter. She is a competent, solid Serpent counter. I would not say she's the best Serpent counter. Who is the best against Serpent will wildly vary on the meta. It will switch in between, in my opinion, between Chavez, Kushala, and probably Spiral. But it will largely depend on meta. Maybe it will be Isophyne's turn at some points as well. What are her biggest upsides? Obviously, it's the fractured power bar, that you do have more control over the fight. That is especially relevant for Mystic Launch champions. When Mystic Dispersion is present, you often do tend to overshoot a special attack that you do not wish, especially level 3. She completely negates that. The fact that everything's passive in her kit is also a very solid strong suit. Passive vulnerabilities, passive wither, passive, furies and egos. So there's nothing to nullify on her side, and there's nothing to shrug off on the opponent's side, which inherently immediately, makes it better when tackling skill shrug off champions or when dealing with some annoying nodes. So that's about the best of it. The worst part about Isophyne in general is that she is an absolute tempo character with an undertuned timers for her tempo in most of the situations, I would say. As you can see, those egos do expire quite quickly, and so do the vulnerabilities, really. That makes her hard to play at, her desired damage output in general. And if there's any reason why the fight would slow down, for instance, AI doesn't throw a special attack, there is some node where you do need to wait out something, let's say hazard shift, or there are some abilities that you need to wait out, that will significantly give her damage to a point of absolute noodle. Even at a relatively quick tempo like Realm of Legends, where I do not need to bother baiting out specials if I do not want to, where I can be effectively as aggressive as I can, you can't achieve her max ramp up pretty much ever in a generic matchup. So that to me screams that she's kind of undertuned for what she could be. At the same time, speaking about her rotation, it's very simple. You do want to spam some level 1s, get some vulnerabilities on, and get to as many egos as you can, and then throw your level 2. The only side note here is you want to activate your level 1s when you are above 2 bars of power, because that will give you 2 vulnerabilities instead of 1. And yeah, long story short, her level 1 is her ramp up special. It puts vulnerabilities on the opponent, and you naturally gain ego by crossing bars of power. And then your level 2 is kind of your cash out damage special. As far as additional abilities go, level 1 will nullify up to 2 buffs. And level 2 will put on 24-second 100% wither, dealing with opponent's ability power rate. Additionally, all of her light attacks have a chance to nullify buff an opponent. So you can see that in generic circumstance here, it's 1 minute 50. It's not an amazing time. So this is going to be like rank 1 Scarlet Witch, that I believe at this point I hadn't even changed the stat focus on. And obviously Scarlet Witch here doesn't have a relic either. But you can see that in generic matchups, there will be a ton of Mystic champions that will do way better. So, rule of thumb here will be, there are no significant amounts of buffs involved. She's mid. That's all there is to it. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no better way of saying it. Unless there are buffs in the fight, she is going to be underwhelming, under average damage output for sure, despite her bright sides. So a mystic like Scarlet Witch, who brings her own buffs, obviously does significantly better here. Champions who do not rely on opponents having buffs as much, like Werewolf by Night, will do better here, so on and so forth. any Mystic champion, you know, Tigras and, for instance, Rintras and whatnot, just about all of those champions will do better here. Isophyne, with the way her egos are tuned, with the way her vulnerabilities are tuned, the fact that you can't refresh them anyway, they have fairly short durations. This is 1 minute 15, by the way. That is a very big difference. Isophyne will be feeling extremely lackluster in any situation where there are no buffs. Now I brought her into a quest that's a monthly event quest for Thronebreakers. This is the final quest where, ironically, Isophyne is the boss as well. So Isophyne can have buffs to nullify here against the opponents, and also you will gain Furies whenever you do. And obviously the results are significantly different. She's performing, you know, about average, I would say. She's not, you know, insane. I do make a mistake here. We will compare her with a handful of other champions, and she does fine work with all of that, you know, extra damage from Furies, extra power from buff nullification, and that allowing her to, you know, get either more vulnerabilities or just do the cycle quicker. She does quite well, and she's an enjoyable champion to play. I don't want anybody to think that I am trying to dig into her. I'm just presenting her the way she is. She, like a lot of champions that came out in 2024, are kind of purpose-built. You can do exactly the things and exactly the matchups that Kabam intended her for, and she will do just fine. She's not going to be exceptional. She's not going to be at highest tier of Mystic class damage, just, you know, about ever. That's not what she's going to do. But she will control the fights against Cosmics very well, because she does have, you know, 2 buffs nullified on her level 1s that, you know, will feed Mystic Dispersion, and you're going to be able to get to another level 1. Then, you know, any full combo that you throw have effectively a chance to nullify a buff to 2 realistically. And here we can see we had like 38 seconds, I believe, 30 seconds. And those are good fight times. I'm going to fast forward here a bit. This fight's going to end in about 38. And the first cable fight, I think, was a bit longer. And obviously her fight duration will also quite significantly depend on whether she gets the crits on level 2s. So it's also a bit of RNG. So it's 48 against Cable. And then bringing in who I'm using here, Sorcerer Supreme. So there's 48 for Isophyne here. We can compare it to the 44 seconds. So Sorcerer Supreme here is slightly faster under these conditions. She's also a champion that's going to be somewhat lackluster if there are no buffs involved. Extremely capable when there are buffs involved. I think this is going to be 29 seconds, so just about the same. So slightly faster, just about the same. And this one was a bit slower, I think. So it's very similar to these kind of like middle of the pack Mystic champions damage wise. That, you know, would make her a meh champion in itself. You know, if she's slower than a ton of other Mystics in buff less scenarios, she's approximately the same as a ton of other champions when opponents do have buffs and there are extra Furies involved. So here we can see it's 37, so she was 48, so Scarlet Witch is faster here. All that stuff, you know, would make her kind of meh. Obviously, the big selling point of Isophyne is the Serpent matchup. Well, Cosmic class in general, she's going to be serviceable, but let's face it. If she wasn't designed to specifically take away just about all of Serpent's tools and bypass the immortality, nobody would really look at her twice. We would get the mandatory Isophyne is here, Isophyne's amazing hype videos, and people would completely forget about her within like a month or two. Since she does Serpent so well, and she really does. This, you know, you're gonna throw like 3 level 1s and you're gonna be gaining constant power, and then you're gonna throw level 2 and Serpent's gonna be dead, and if he isn't, you're gonna throw another level 2 and he will be. And that, you know, shows here as well. There was like 35 seconds there for Isophyne. Obviously, you can use champions like Sorcerer Supreme against Serpent as well. It's a doable fight. It's not as good as it is with Isophyne. And we can see that, you know, just here, controlling the fight. The end of the fight obviously can get out of hand. That's also going to be demonstrated right here. Sorcerer Supreme does have, you know, the ability to regen on block, and we will recover most of the health that we lost here initially. If I wanted to focus on, you know, remaining health over the speed, I could do that too. And here is how these fights can often get out of control, because, you know, the last power gain is quite brutal to deal with for most Mystic Champions even. And still, it was 53 seconds. It was significantly slower than Isophyne. And I was actually quite surprised how well Scarlet Witch does this matchup. Partially that helps her to be quite fast is that Fury at the beginning, I guess, that you steal from Serpent. But still, it's not going to be as good as Isophyne, because we will still have to sit through the immortality. My apologies. I'm a bit ill. And there you go. That is, you know, exactly what it is. So, Scarlet Witch is going to do the Serpent fight again just fine. There's nothing really stopping you. I'm actually kind of surprised that more people don't use Scarlet Witch against Serpent in general, but those dots kind of help to finish fight quicker. It's still slower. Oops. Still slower than, you know, most of the champions will be against Serpent. So, my conclusion on Isophyne is that she is a Serpent counter. She's acceptable against Cosmic Champions. She's great against Serpent. And she's very poor just about everywhere else. Kind of switch gears here a bit. Let's take some possible matchups for Isophyne. So I do think that Isophyne can deal with Korg just about fine, because she does have energy damage, her base hits, and none of her abilities are debuffs. So I do think, you know, for instance, against Korg, in a pinch, you can use Isophyne. I think she's going to be quite slow, but there's nothing really, you know, inhibiting your tempo in the fight, other than, you know, AI refusing to throw a special, but Korg's typically fairly good about that. So yeah, I think she can do Korg just fine. I think she's going to be good against, you know, Kingpin and skill shrug of champions in general. This could be Maulman. This could be, for instance, Mantis. She's not shrug off, but, you know, still, she's going to be good against stuff like that. I think she can do Onslaught decently well. And that primarily will come from her egos being paused during opponent's special attacks. So long shots, long special attack duration doesn't really, you know, hurt you that much. And it'd be okay. It wouldn't be great, but I think, again, in a pinch, she's viable against Onslaught. I think she's a good Kindred counter, actually, because number one, you do have that Wither that control the Mystic Dispersion, should you happen to gain it. And number two, you can always pretty much make sure you do have some power left over with your Fractured power bar, so you can, you know, finish him off decently well. I think obviously against Cosmic Champion she'd be good against, you know, Nova and Medusa on defense, and Hulkling I think she'd be solid. Obviously Serpent she's great at, something like an Eyeless. You know, many of these matchups are kind of self-explanatory and not necessarily the most common though. So against the common top defenders, again, I think Korg should be decent, not great at. Onslaught I think she would do, and realistically you'd still draft her against the Serpent. The champions obviously, and this is going to be exactly like talking about her downside, obviously she has nothing against champions like Atuma or Bullseye. Even though she is bleed immune, I don't think she's going to be a good Bullseye counter at all, and that goes from the fact that you will have no other choice but to wait out those evades, and once you do that, your ego falls off, your vulnerabilities expire, and you're never going to achieve decent damage. So I think that's, you know, quite unfortunate. I think against Nick Fury, she's just going to be too slow, even there is a debuff. But, you know, in general, I think she can do the matchup. I don't think she's, you know, among the fastest. Killmonger, again, I just don't see her doing kind of well at all. And she does have nothing against reverb damage. You'd think she was going to be great against tech class champions. But I kind of discovered that there are just about no tech defender, you know, great defenders that should be good against that. I think Shocker she could be decent with, but, you know, against Fam, you start nullifying things, and Fam's just going to get the passives, and you're nowhere near fast enough, plus then he's going to start messing with your power bar. So I don't think she's going to do too great against Fam, not to mention that you know, kind of invest a lot of your damage in that level too. I mean, maybe she's decent. Kind of doubt it. Red Skull, he's just immune to nullify, so that's not gonna be great. Penny doesn't have anything to nullify, and she forces you to slow down your tempo, so she's not gonna really work there. You know, Domino, no increased ability accuracy. Havoc, she deals in energy damage, so that's not gonna go great. Mr. Sinister, again, she can't stop the debuffs really, so you will either have to push Mr. Sinister to level 2 and then lose your tempo to wait out the concussion. I don't think it's going to go well, plus you have nothing to stop the healing. I think she can do Sasquatch, but I think it's going to be far too late. And obviously Enchantress, again, there's going to be a tempo issue where you need to, you know, bait out the heavy attack and land that intercept, and, you know, don't see it working on great. So, what are my final thoughts of Isophyne? Should you rank her up? Should you not rank her up? And the answer there is quite simple. If you do not have many or any Serpent counters, rank her up. If you do, for instance, have, like, you know, Kushala, Chavez, and Shatra ranked up already, there's very little meaning to rank up Isophyne. On a personal note, I'm in absolutely no rush to even rank to her at the moment. I might, but again, even looking at the future metas that we will have in Battlegrounds, where it's going to be the Safeguard Mixmaster type thing, you know, Isophyne is not going to be among the top counters for sure. Shatra would be like miles better there, and Spiral would be better there, and, you know, a bunch of other champions. Kushala is going to be better there. So I'm in no rush to rank up Isophyne. I'm taking the Beta Bill approach. I like the champion. I enjoy using the champion. I think the champion's quite cool. If I will find myself in a need to rank her up, I will not feel bad or hesitate to do so. At the moment, I don't really have a reason or need to do so, other than, you know, I kind of want to have a new champion, have fun. So currently my Isophyne's gonna stay at rank 1. I hope this video was helpful to you guys, and if it was, hit the like button, hit the sub button, hit all the good buttons. And I'm gonna catch you guys soon. Bye bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about